Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel, Mitch's 미친영어코칭, my YouTube channel where I give you just short 10-minute videos to help you in business. When you're speaking English, a lot of you have to speak English for work. So these videos, I'm giving you some tips, some help. Hopefully it helps. If it does, leave a comment for me in the comment section. Let me know. I love to hear from you. Not many people leave comments when they watch my videos. It'd be great if you could. If you send a message, just let me know if this helps you, if it doesn't help you, what things you want to study more. If you give me some suggestions, I'll make videos on your suggestions in very soon. I can do it next week if you want to. If you send me a comment on this video saying, oh, Mitch, I'd really like to study about this, or I want to know what to do in this kind of situation, then I'll make a video on it very soon, okay? I take requests. All right, everybody. So today we're going to talk about how to say no to a client or anybody really. But when you have to say no to a client or customer, it's not always easy, right? Nobody likes to hear no. Nobody likes to hear disagreement, okay? So I'm going to talk to you about how you can say no without damaging the relationship, the business relationship, okay? You can disagree with style, with logic, and you disagree without cutting off the relationship, without making the other person too angry, okay? They might not be happy because nobody likes to hear no, but if you do it in the right way, usually you can make it smooth. It can be smooth, okay? So that's what we're going to talk about in this video today. I'm going to give you 3 disagreement strategies, okay? 3 strategies for how to disagree with, like I said, it could be a client or customer, or these also could be for anybody. Disagree with your boss, disagree with your coworker, disagree with your friends, whoever, anybody, okay? But specifically, we're going to talk about customer and clients today. But when you disagree, first of all, the validation start. You need to start with validation. What does validation mean? Validate is the verb, validation is the noun. Always validate their point first. Before you pivot to what you want to say, before you start talking about your opinion, first validate their point. Validate means you have to acknowledge what they said and even agree. To be honest, in English, we often, even if we disagree, we often agree. We often say like, you can't just say, oh, I don't agree with that. That's a terrible idea. No, I don't like that. That's not really going to work, right? Sometimes when we disagree, we just say, yeah, I agree with that, but I think, and then you literally disagree. You just said, I agree, and then you disagree. That's actually a good thing to do in English, right? The first thing you want to do is validate what they said. Because if you just say, I don't agree with that, they're going to get a little bit upset. They're going to feel like you're not listening to them, like you don't understand them. Everybody wants to be heard. Everybody wants to be understood. And so first you have to do that. If you want to make any progress, you have to do that first. So I'll give you a phrase to use for that. When you want to validate what they said, they gave you some problem. They said, oh, we need to fix this. This is a problem. I don't think this is going to work, blah, blah, blah. They have some negative feedback, but you disagree. You say it like this. Oh, you know what? I understand your concern, but from a technical perspective, blah, 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 or whatever the disagreement is. Okay, that part you have to fill in for yourself. So before you meet this person, think about your position, right? And then maybe write that down. That's going to be the ending of this. But the first part, you're going to start by saying, yeah, okay, I understand your concern, but from a technical perspective, or from a sales perspective, or from our company's perspective, from the headquarters perspective, it depends on what the issue is, okay? But that first part, I understand your concern. That's a very, very powerful validation statement, okay? You're validating them. You're saying, I understand your concern. I understand why you're upset, why you're worried, what you're thinking about here. I get it. But, and then you give the counter argument, okay? That's the first step. Validate them first. I understand your concern. Okay, then second step here, the data-driven disagreement. You need to, when you disagree, don't just give your feelings, right? Don't say, oh, but I feel like, no. This is business. We're not talking about your feelings, okay? You need to have facts, data, research, something. Do your homework before you go into this meeting. Know everything that you're going to talk about, your data points, okay? Get the actual numbers, get the actual figures, get some charts, get some visual things you can show them, okay? Don't just say, oh no, that's wrong. I disagree with that, that's wrong. Say, I understand your concern, but the data suggests a slightly different outcome. So we might want to consider this. The data suggests, the research suggests, the numbers suggest a slightly different outcome. So that means when I look at the actual data, actual numbers, there's a different outcome than what you're suggesting. So that's why I disagree. In other words, my disagreement is not just my feeling, it's based on facts. And I have them here to show you. So that way they really can't argue too much with you. So it's very important to do that. But you have to do it in a nice way. You can't just say, I got the numbers, you're wrong. Not going to work. You got to say, okay, I understand your concern, but the data really suggests a slightly different outcome. So we might want to reconsider that. That's the second step, okay? And then from there, you can go to the third step, which is given the alternate proposal. We might want to reconsider what, okay? So in this case, you never say no without giving another opinion, right? You can't just say, I disagree. The data disagrees with you. So see you next time. No, you have to, the third step is very important. Give an alternative proposal. Okay, don't just say, oh, we can't do that schedule. We can't do that. No, say, so due to the current projects, that timeline is tight. However, would it be possible to deliver by next Monday instead? Okay, this specific example is talking about timeline. That's often a point of disagreement, timeline. But it doesn't have to be about timeline. Due to whatever the problem is. In this case, due to current projects, that timeline is tight. It's a little tight. However, would it be possible? And then give an alternative. So going back to the previous example, the data suggests something slightly different outcome. So, however, we might want to reconsider that strategy that we were doing. Would it be possible to go with this strategy and then have a plan B, have your alternative strategy? Again, that's something you'll need to get ready before the meeting, right? Before you meet this customer or this person or the boss or whoever it is, do your homework, do your research, get the data, and also have a plan B, have an alternative plan to suggest, backup plan. The alternative proposal is the most important part, okay? You need to validate their opinion in the beginning. Then you need to have some research and data to back up the reason for your disagreement, and then give the alternative proposal. Try to give it in a different way. However, would it be possible to try it this way this time? Do you think we could do this? Okay, so that way you've really kind of made a good argument for your opinion, okay, and why you disagree with them. But in a friendly way, in a polite way, not in a disrespectful way. Very respectful. They will appreciate it. And probably, if you have a good plan B, they'll probably say, you know what? Okay, I see your point. I got it. Let's try your proposal here and let's see if that works. Okay, we'll give it another 2 weeks or so, whatever the timeline is. We'll try your way. We'll see if this works. Most of the time, logical people, if you give them the proper alternative, they're going to take it because probably they don't have any ideas. They just have a complaint. You got an idea that makes you valuable. You can really, really increase your value if you make sure to do those 3 steps that I just talked about. And of course, the last one, give an alternative proposal. Okay, so there you go. I hope that helps. The next time you have a disagreement, one of those difficult discussions in English, even in Korean, maybe that will help you if you have a Korean meeting, same thing. But for an English business meeting, when you have a customer, a client who's not happy, they want something different, well, there you go. Try those 3 steps and see if it helps. All right, everybody, I'll see you in the next video.